And then the next thing I kind of remember was Aunt Jenny and I, behind us in the quarry. See, our island was surrounded by railroad, and they have trains going from Elizabeth, New Jersey to New York, and it's one of them where the centers are that were just blown up. We had trains that went into that building. But before that, these trains went into Canal Street.
Oh,
and Fulton
yeah,
Street.
like Canal Street was where the Twin Towers used to be before the attack.
Right. And trains went into, the two trains went into that. And that's where Grandpa worked.
Oh,
he was,
wow.
An electrician.
I thought he worked in Jersey City.
No, he worked, well, he did. He worked in downtown Jersey City in the Hudson Manhattan tubes.
Oh, cool.
And that was in the lower part of Jersey City. And I remember Aunt Jenny and I used to play like Tom Sawyer. Wouldn't it be around the railroad? There was a quarry, and it had a lake in it, and the lake was about, well, it wasn't very big, and the water was in places 6 feet deep. And in the center of this was a little island. In the center of this was a little island.
Yeah?
And we used to make a raft to go to the island.
What'd you make the raft out of?
Oh, some logs that were down there, and we tied them together.
Cool.
And Aunt Jenny would go home at times, and when we planned on going down there, and she'd take a cup of potatoes from Grandma, and I would go around the neighborhood and look for people who had milk deliveries and take a quart of milk, which was in bottles. And we'd go down there, and we'd have a party, playing like Tom Sawyer. Oh yeah, and cook the potatoes, bake the potatoes. What else? And then playing ball with Uncle Jimmy. Uncle Jimmy always caught ball ever since, because when he was in school, St. Joseph's always had a baseball team. So he was a first baseman. And from as early as I can remember, we'd catch balls. And that's what we did from real little.
Yeah.
And then as I was growing up, the Jimmys had a team, and they had 8 players on it, and they needed the 9th. And I was always the right fielder. I was always in right field.
You were a lot younger than them.
Oh yeah, I was, what, 6, 8 years younger than them. But I made up the 9th man. We did that out for I don't know how long. What else? Can you turn it off a minute? Let me think. Is it on? Is it
yeah,
moving?
it's recording.
Okay. And then I remember being in the 5th grade, I made St. Joseph's baseball team. And I played center field and did a little pitching there. And in the 6th grade, I was pitcher and center fielder. And this is something you're not going to believe or know, but Frank Sinatra was a reporter for either the Jersey Journal or the Jersey Observer.
And I think I remember reading that somewhere, that he was a reporter.
And he covered high school and elementary school baseball and football games. And it got that Father Coleridge called me Little DiMaggio when I was about in the 7th or 8th grade. And in one of his articles he wrote about Joe Falconetti being Little DiMaggio.
That's cool. I wonder if we can find that.
I don't know.
I bet we could.
I don't know. Probably in the Post or the Observer, if they still save those.
I bet it's all on. It's probably all on the internet.
Probably. We have to look and see. And then, and Father Coleridge used to take us to see the Yankees play, the Giants play, the Dodgers play. And Father Coleridge was the manager of St. Joseph's team. And there were times that we would play, and when we won, he would take the whole team to play.
That's so cool.
And they had, I don't know what you call them, they weren't station wagons at that time, but they were, and they weren't buses. And after school was out, and they started, and I was in about the 8th grade, the Jersey City firemen managed baseball teams, football teams.
Oh, kind of like the police.
Yeah, and hockey teams,
oh.
and basketball teams, or whenever the season was in. And they started, I think when I was in the 8th grade, they started what they called the Build Better Boys.
Build Better Boys.
Build
That's
Better
cool.
Boys League. And they started in baseball, so I started playing baseball, and when I was in the 8th grade in Build Better Boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of young for it, but they still let me play. But we did play football and hockey.
Cool.
And what they used to do, after the baseball season was over, the firemen used to go on these baseball fields and flood them. They had like...
Why?
Then we'd go ice skating. And around these fields, they put these 60-gallon drums. And they build fires in them.
Oh.
And they'd be football games going.
Cool.
At one end of the field, there'd be hockey games on the other end of the field. And then at that time, the public schools were open, and they taught the kids how to play basketball.
Cool.
And as this went on, then when I went to high school, I started at St. Peter's, and I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Dickerson High. And the first year I made freshman team. And I made freshman in football.
Action.
Okay. I told you about being in Build Better Boys.
Yeah.
Well, when I was in it, a priest from St. Joseph's, Father Corey, asked him to take over kids that graduated from St. Joseph's into the Build Better Boy League. So we went into that, and that's what was run by the different fire departments or fire stations in Jersey City and in Newark and all these different places.
That's neat.
And the fire departments run that. And they had everything. Baseball, football, and then one time, after football season was over, they flood the football fields and baseball fields. They teach us ice skating. They taught us hockey and stuff like this.
Funky.
And then, this priest, it was either his uncle or his father, managed Hager Incorporated. They made Hager Incorporated. They made bathroom fixtures. And
you know, like the boxes and stuff.
They make toilets too?
no, just the fixtures. And they made gold, chromium, all different kind. And he used to come and watch us play, and he took a liking to me. So when I was in the 11th grade, and that was in 1941, that's when they started on working for the government. So at night after school, I went there, and I run a little lathe about this big, and on it there were tubes, and I fine-tuned the tubes, and then when I was finished with them, they went to another machine, and they cut the tubes into pieces about this big.
What were they?
I don't know.
Oh.
It was for the Army.
Do you think it was guns?
No, it wasn't guns.
It
It
was
wasn't
fun
bullets,
stuff?
but it had something to do for the Army.
Cool.
And when all this happened, and when I'm getting ahead of myself, let me.
Okay.
In my 12th year, in 41, when the war started, most of the soldiers that were at Fort Dix would pass by the island on the way to the boats in New York, and everybody would go out, and we'd all go out and wave at them, because they would go by about every 3-4 hours.
Huh.
These were trainloads of soldiers. And And this went on up until, well, when I was going overseas.
Let me ask you something. What were you doing when they bombed Pearl Harbor?
When we found, I was at Mass when we were told by Father Carlin.
Were you in 11th grade?
Yeah, I was in the 11th grade. And Father Carlin, and he was the pastor of St. Mary's, and he's also the Jersey City, he's the Jersey City fire chaplain.
Oh, wow.
And he had a fire, like a chief's car, and he would go to all fires, and he was the chaplain there.
Wow.
And he went in, and he told us then that Pearl Harbor was bombed, and that after Mass go home, that the president was probably going to give a speech if he wasn't already speaking. So we went home and listened to the radio, and of course,
Did he?
he gave a speech. Matter of fact, it was repeated over and over again. All day. President Roosevelt.
Did your whole family gather around?
Yes. And Grandpa was mad. He was mad at Mussolini to think that Mussolini would join Hitler and do the things that Hitler was doing. And he was mad at him. And so when Larry, well, first of all, Uncle Joe went first, and Larry went next, and Jimmy had just come out of the CCC camp, and they called him right back in. So those three went, and of course Grandma was saying, "You're not going to have to go." And now let me go back. When I was little, I remember Uncle Jimmy and Aunt Ann and Aunt Nancy taking me in a huge carriage to the Jersey City Hospital. And it had something to do with my knees.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what was wrong with them, but I had to go, and I always had my knees either water taken out of them or something was done to my knees. And I forgot about that.
Wow.
And so Grandma always swore that I would be too sick to go in the Army. But when the day I was drafted and went, she was sorry, but yet she knew I was healthy. And that made her happy.
Oh, wow.
What else? Oh, I told you about, when we then in 41, when we were inducted, we were drafted into the Army, there were, I believe, 10 of us that went to Fort Dix. Well, we went to Newark first to be examined. And then they said they would call us. In about 10 days, we went to Camp Dix. And in Camp Dix, first week we did nothing but take tests. We took all kinds of tests, written tests, tests where you put stuff inside things, put stuff together. And these guys were being shipped out, one at a time. They were being shipped, some guys went, and I was the only one left out of the whole 10 of them.
You were the last one?
I was the last one to go. Here, I drove a truck, and in the morning, they were whacks. I'm sure they were whacks. But at that time, we didn't know what. They were women in uniform. And they would call you, and you were assigned a truck, and the whacks would tell you where to go. One day I'd be delivering bread. Another day I'd be delivering like sugar or pepper, salt, potatoes. And I'd be delivering these to different of the mess halls. And I'd be delivering meat. But we didn't do anything, just drive the truck. When we got there, the whack would go in, tell the head cook what was on there, and he would have guys come out and unload the truck. And they put them in special places. And one day we got assigned, and we were on the train. And this major come out. He was kind of like on a loud horn, and he said all of this was going through. He could talk to two trains at a time, and he shouted, "Welcome, you are now in the U.S. Army Air Force, and our next stop will be Atlantic City." He said, "You will take your basic training in Atlantic City."
Were you happy?
Oh yeah, I was tickled pink. Because we used to watch the planes fly from Newark to New York. And I used to say, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fly. So when we got down there, of course, basic training was rough. we did everything but march. They would pour gasoline into the ocean like a big pool, and then we'd have to jump in and swim out of it. We'd swim under it, and you get up and they taught us. You splash the fire away, and you get up, and then you go down and you splash until you go up. They would teach us to take our shirts off, button them, button the sleeves, tie a knot in the sleeves, and you waved them, and you put air in them, and you used them as preservers. And this was the shirts that we had.
Wow.
And they do the same with pants. You could take your pants off, tie them, and then take your belt and strap the top, put air in them, and they would help you float. And we were taught all of this. And then taught how to fight, to swim into the fire and away from the fire. And that was the scariest.
I bet that was scary.
But
You knew how to swim already, though.
Oh, yeah, see. Well, as a kid, we used to swim from, today they call it Liberty Park.
Mm-hmm.
We used to swim from that point to the Statue of Liberty. And we get over there and we walk around. Of course, they chase you because there wasn't anything there, but just, and I don't even think there were guards.
Uh-huh.
Just people on there that didn't want the kids to come. So we'd swim back to Jersey. And we'd see who could swim the furthest. We'd swim out and swim around the statue and come back. And then now south of that would be north of that, I guess, was Bayonne.
Mm-hmm.
And in Bayonne, they had what they call Hell's Kitchen. The water down there was like whirlpools.
Mm-hmm.
You get into that, and they say you couldn't get out. But we used to not go that closer, but we knew where it was. And so when we were doing this, I remembered, oh God, this was easy. I could swim in the Hudson River. I could swim this because it isn't as deep. So that was fun. And then we'd have at the mess hall, when you went through the mess hall, on the table they'd have bananas, apples, oranges.
Yeah.
And I used to steal them, not steal them, but take them. Get back to the room. I get back to the room, and I had no place to carry them. So I tried putting them in with my gas mask, but I could only get a banana in, and then it would be hard to close. So one day I decided to leave the gas mask home, and then after that, I'd go to the mess hall, and I'd fill up with bananas, apples, oranges, sometimes pears, but I didn't like pears, but Gus did, and Mario did. No, honey, the bag, not my hat.
What bag?
The gas mask bag.
Oh.
The gas mask was a bag that you put over your shoulder and hung down here. That's what we did. And we just had a ball. And we get out there and we break and we break things in half and serve. So one day when we did this, our drill instructor, which I didn't know he knew, said, Falconetti, you know what we're going to do today? And I said, I imagine we're going to go into the big tent. And he said, that's right. You know what's in there? And I said, no, but I bet you it's going to be full of gas. And sure enough, and I said, uh-oh. He said, yeah. He said, what do you got? And I said, well, I have bananas, apples, oranges. And he says, okay. He said, do you have a knife? Cut a couple of oranges in half. And he said, when you go in there, breathe the oranges, put them as close to your nose and mouth as you can. He said, and then you'll wind up maybe getting through it all right. And that's what I did. But boy, did my eyes burn. I think I had sore eyes for about 3 or 4 days.
Really?
But after that, he teased me. He said, what you got in your gas mask? And I said, a banana. No oranges, no apples. I said, I don't have room. So that was a joke. And then from there, we were there April, May, and part of June. And from there we went to Lowry Field in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to, it was gunnery school. We had to learn to take the 45 apart the carbine rifle, the M1 rifle, the 30 caliber machine gun, and the 50 caliber machine gun. They said these guns are probably what you're going to be using. So we got that. We had to take them apart blindfolded, put them together again blindfolded, and
Could you do it?
oh yeah, it got to where I liked it.
Really?
And what I did was work it in system. I finally taught Gus and Earl how to do it. Mario could do it because Mario used to say, "You did it the best," and I'd say, "Well, when you take the first part out, put it up there. You take the second part out, use your pinky to find where the other one is, then drop that part. You take the other part out, use your pinky to find that part, drop the other one." And I said, just keep following your pinky, which I did. And then I said, when you put the gun together again, and what they used to do is take the gun and put it on the table, and you had to hunt for it. And I used to figure, well, I go like this to find the last thing I took off the gun, and I find it, and then I find the gun. Then I start putting it back together again the way I took it apart. And we did that with the carbines, the M1s, the 30 caliber. And we all had it. We had to learn. We had to learn about the Sperry's bomb sight and the Norton bomb sight. And we took those apart, put them together again. And then we learned bomb shackles. The bomb shackles what held up the bombs. And they were anywhere from, well, they held 100-pound bombs to 200-pound bombs to 400 or 500-pound bombs. And we had to learn how to arm them and then disarm them if necessary. And we were there July, August, and September. From there, at Lowry Field. That's where I met Mom and
You
Aunt
met her
Pam.
the first time through?
Mom was pregnant with a jury at the time.
Oh, I thought you met her after you told me about.
No, I was going with Aunt Al.
Yeah.
Aunt Al, Alice. Who's Alice's sister, honey? We're going with
Chicky.
me. It was Gus, Mario, Earl, Bob Bonnet, Aunt Al, Alice, and I forget who the other was. And once in a while, Mom would come with us. And we did everything. Al and I used to dance. We used to do everything together. And then when we were shipped out, well, Aunt Al was a nut. She had Frank's car.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where she would say, "Joe, you drive." Well, I didn't have a driver's license. So we went down and she said, "No, they're not going to give you a driver's license unless you tell you're 21. Because if we want to rent a car, you have to be 21 to rent a car." Remember when she said that? So I said, okay. So I went in and I told him I was 21. He's in uniform. So I got my driver's license. So after that, wherever we went, I drove. And we used to go up Lookout Mountain.
Yeah.
Remember what that was like?
Yeah.
And she'd try and hit the side. She tried to hit the side of the mountain going up. And she'd stick her head out. She'd stick her head out of the car, and she did crazy things. She was fun. And Al was fun. And then when we were shipped out, I went to Harlingen, Texas, and down there.
Wait, did you start going out with Mom before you left? Or
No.
Oh, no. You were just like dating Alice.
It was then that we met, what's his name? Klein. Vincent.
You met him?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I
We
never knew
met.
that.
Yeah, we met Vincent. And what was he there, about 3 days, I mean? Because I know he wasn't there long.
And that's when you were living at his parents' house?
Yeah, Mom lived over on Nevada Street. And I met, they called her Sis, I believe. It was Kathleen, and Vincent's mom, and Vincent's dad, and Vincent had an uncle who was a policeman. He was a detective, wasn't he?
You remember all that one? Wow. How far along were you pregnant with Jerry? Were you big and fat?
No.
you weren't? Yeah. But Dad, did you meet Grandma King?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did you know all Mom's family?
I knew all Mom's family.
So was Aunt Al still living with Grandma?
Yes. It was Aunt Al, Johnny, Aunt Boo, Sonny. Sonny was little. And Grandma was great.
Did you love her from the beginning?
Yes. And she loved me from the very beginning, didn't she? And then we went to Harlingen.
Did you write to anybody?
No. No. As a matter of fact, I wrote very seldom to even my mother and father, because over there it just seemed like, well, let me get over there. When we were down at Harlingen,
what were you doing at Harlingen?
It was gunnery school.
Oh, okay.
The first thing we did was they gave us BB guns, and they would set them in a turret, just like machine guns, and they would shoot BBs out. And they'd have balloons. Somebody would let balloons go by, and you track the balloons and try to break them. And that's when we first learned tracking by shooting down balloons.
Oh,
And it's about a little further than you are from me.
wow.
About near the wall. And we try and break the balloon. Then after we got that, we got machine guns, the 30 caliber machine guns. And they would target practice, and this was on the ground in a turret. And they'd have stuff fly over, and you tried to shoot those before they hit the ground. Then the next thing was they put you in an airplane, and the pilots, and these were AT-6s. They looked a lot like Japanese Zeros, almost identical to it. And the pilot sat in front, you sat in the back, and there was a bar that went across, and the machine gun was on this bar. Then you belted yourself in your shoulder harness, and you belted yourself in. When you took off, you'd get up, and the pilot would say, "You ever fly before?" Because most of us no. He said, "Fine," and he'd peel off. He said, "Well, how do you like that?" I said, "That was great. Can we do that again?" And he'd peel off and make a belly roll. He said, "How do you like that?" And I said, "Great." So when we got there, he said, "Okay, the sleeve will be coming. When it comes," he said,
what you were shooting at?
what we were shooting at. He says, "You try and hit the target on there. Your ammunition is colored." And he says, "And I